All right, welcome in everybody. It is Mocking After Dark. I got a couple new guys with me. Well, Jorge, you've been here before, but we got Nate Markham with us tonight. Little IDP, but we're gonna break him in the right way, and we're gonna do a startup mock draft tonight. I know there's a few people that have asked for it. This is going to be a super flex tight end premium. Just to give everybody a heads up, we're only going to do the first 10 picks, first 10 rounds, basically the 10 starters. So we're going to start off with quarterback, two running back, two wide receiver, one tight end, three flex, and then one super flex. So now that I've given everybody the rules, I'm going to go ahead and start the draft. And then Nate, you're going to be on the clock first. So I kind of got a good feeling where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. So once you pick, how's your week been, man?
Week's been great. I just got back yesterday from vacation in Cancun, so my face is, maybe as you can tell, I've been saying it's a shade of rosé. Sounds a little more bougie and upscale than just saying sunburnt. I know maybe others will disagree with that, but I like to move from this rosé hopefully into a bourbon color. My guess is it just goes from rosé to probably more of a Goldschlager, I think, is probably the right skin color. If our skin has alcoholic colors, maybe that's how we're gonna, all come together and everything.
Well, I mean, you're
just rosé.
You said you just got back from Cancun. I'm assuming your skin is still sweating out some of the alcohol.
I was pretty good. Yes, the easy answer is yes, but I didn't. You know what? Knowing yesterday, the time that we left was early, so I didn't get all crazy. We actually go back in about 5 months, and at that point, then maybe I have an extra couple days. Maybe I'll circle back. But yeah, it's been great, good enough to it's always wonderful to get away. I missed all you guys, of course. I missed watching all the mocks and talking about things, so I'm excited to jump back in for that.
Now I just turned the sound off. Why is it still going?
It's probably mine.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So, Jorge, we'll get to you in just a second because you've got a few minutes before you're on the clock here. But I am on the clock now, and one of the things I would like to ask Nate about is this is a dynasty startup. Of course, with Sleeper, we can't do trades to start with, and there are about 8 or 9 top quarterbacks in the league, right? So picking these first 5 are pretty damn easy. Mm-hmm. But question for you as I make this pick, you want to get back into this, to that 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 range to get one of these other quarterbacks to just lock up that quarterback position for the next 5 years in these startups. What are you willing to give up, whether it be this draft plus next year's rookie draft?
I mean, I guess my first approach would be seeing how much of next year I can give up to gain this year. And the nice thing is I don't value the second year of a startup first round or, first, second, third round, any of the aforementioned, anywhere close to what a first round in the startup would be. And everybody else assumes the same thing. I don't see anybody wanting to gain next year first and give up early startups this year. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're clairvoyant and you can grab the one, I'm sure having someone like Bijan this year was really valuable. Getting Caleb Williams next year would be really valuable. But if I could go to where it's at right now with Arizona Cards on the clock, depending upon, like you said, 6, 7, and 8. So now at this point with Jefferson going there, like for instance, I would love to target any of the top 3. And for me, in that order would go Lamar, Burrow, Herbert in that order. And would I give up, my third this year and first and second next year? I'm bad with dynasty trades. I got to tell you, it's not my forte. And so I don't want to just sound ignorant by throwing a bunch of random picks out, but I'm intrigued to hear what you two think as far as what you would send out or what you would accept.
Well, Jorge's on the clock now. So, with the picks going Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Lawrence, Fields, and then the Justin Jefferson and now Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. Jorge's on the clock here, looking at these quarterbacks with, the Lamar Jackson, the Herbert, Who else is on here? Quarterback wise,
I mean, I guess you go down.
Richardson. I mean, when you look at the ADP wise, those are the top ones. So Jorge at 1.8.
Yeah.
Okay, you take Lamar right here.
Right.
What would you do to get back to that 1.9 if you wanted to go ahead and jump back in there to get Herbert right here to lock up?
Probably to lock that up, I would probably give first next year and my second this year, and I probably would have to give something else to really if I really wanted Justin Herbert. But definitely, you're giving up a first in the following year and a couple seconds probably. I don't know if that's too expensive, but I personally really like Justin Herbert, and so I mean it's one of those. I think dynasty trades. It really comes down to two things: what they're how badly do you just like the player, and then just pay what you got to pay within reason. And if that means it's a little bit too rich, cool, fine. At least you got your second quarterback in this case for the next 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the biggest concern when you're looking at these startups is trying to lock up a position, whether it be quarterback or in some instances, with it being a tight end premium, locking up a tight end, that maybe even two of the top, over 5, 6, tight ends when it comes down to it. You want to basically get a stranglehold on this one position that you don't have to worry about for what 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
All right. Now that's not to say that people here who are taking Jefferson, at 7 and Chase at 9, it's clearly an example of like zigging where other people are zagging, right? If you're gonna pass on quarterback and you're gonna roll with these QB2s, low end QB2s, then you definitely want to grab elite in another position. And given the full nature of the PPR and just how much target volume these two receivers are seeing, this would be the only case where I'd see where I would say wide receiver is worthy of this first round selection, like Jefferson and Chase specifically. I don't think I'd pick any other wide receiver in the first round.
No, I mean, and I'll send it to Nate to see what he thinks as well. But I mean, Jefferson and Chase, and we saw Bijan right here at 111. But I think those are probably the three obvious choices besides quarterback that are going in the first round of the startups. Nate?
No, I agree. I have a hard time ever taking any running back outside of someone that has that elite upside not necessarily just a rookie, even a second year, because let's go back. Let's go back. 2020 wasn't that long ago, right? I mean, realistically, 2020 was just what you would expect. You would hope that you would get minimum 3 years out of a startup running back. I think that's a fair expectation. And yet, if you look at the top 10 from 2020, I realize some of them have been playing for a while up until that point. But at the end of the day, it went Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, James Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Zeke, Kareem Hunt, and Nick Chubb. Of those, 2 are in the top, 12 at the running back position this year? Maybe 10, I guess we'll say, because, you understand where I'm coming from, especially from a startup perspective. Yet, that same thing could be said if you look at the receiver position. Just feels like that longevity. I mean, the return on investment seems to be a longer amount for a much more so, at least from my experience, even in this ever tumultuous NFL. That's the hardest thing. The coaches are even becoming less adamant about the bell cow back. And so, I mean, that would be something I would ask both of you guys as well. Do we think that that's changing at any point? How there's ebbs and flows of the NFL season. I've watched it for 40 years, where you have running seasons, and then all of a sudden it goes more pass heavy, and then kind of a neutral. We're seeing the higher pass heavy leagues now more so than ever. Do we ever get back to bell cow backs going forward? I mean, what do you think, Jorge?
No. I think we're in a situation now where it's like preserve the running back position at all costs, which when I think about that strategy, the team that comes to mind this past year was San Francisco. I mean, they were lucky they got the McCaffrey deal done. But they also had a receiver in Deebo Samuel who was also utilized in the running game also. So that kind of actually helped in terms of the wear and tear, on McCaffrey this year. So no, I don't see the bell cow back coming back anytime soon. I think Pittsburgh is probably the only team that really invested in their offensive line this offseason to help out with Najee Harris and kind of like help restore that, efficiency. Let's see here on the clock. Here
even with Pittsburgh, with Najee, Warren was still a viable option when he was in there.
Yeah, and I think just the term efficiency with, Najee has never really been the case. I think efficiency, unfortunately, has been the antagonist in that relationship. It's been utilization. And that's what we would like to see is the efficiency. And I think that's probably what Jorge was actually saying. Right. And I misinterpreted that. But I think there's a lot of people that feel that, a bell cow, give me that. And if he can ever become efficient with his carries as well, then the sky's the limit. It's a lot to ask out of a person when there's, you're relying on the offensive line as well as the offensive play callers to give you that opportunity.
Speaking of Najee Harris, one of our guys here, Chris Battistel, one of the hosts of Fourth and Frames, just put together a Dynasty target profile on Najee Harris, which you can see on our YouTube starting Monday YouTube channel, as well as an article over at fantasyandframes.com. Shameless plug
as well.
But it was really well done, and I think he spoke to a lot of what we're talking about here. But there's also a lot more information that you can check out in the coming days.
Yeah, so I just want to recap real quick. After Jefferson, we had Burrow, Jackson, Chase, Herbert, Bijan Robinson, Jalen Waddle to finish out the first round. Then we had CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Christian McCaffrey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jorge doubling up on quarterback with Dak Prescott, Bear Down doubling up on quarterback with Bryce Young, A.J. Brown, and then Anthony Richardson. So I think I just got, sniped right there by the swiper, the cat, because I was definitely going to go all upside and get Richardson there as I am a Gator. So now I am on the clock here. And these decisions are I have a choice to make. Do I'm really wondering if I can punt this second quarterback, and I think I'm going to go ahead and go get an elite.
Yeah, you're taking who I would guess is what my target was going to be, but continue.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is going to be your target right here, and I get the snipe for you. Actually, I got a couple guys. Damn it! Now, why does this list got to be so good of these wide receivers? So I'm going to go ahead and take Steph Diggs right here. Again, this is a startup. I don't, when I go into a startup, I don't go in with a preconceived notion of how I want to build. I let the first 3 to 4 rounds dictate it, and hopefully by round 4, round 5, somewhere in that range, I know whether I am going to be that I'm going to go after it right now, or I may be a year or two out, and I can actually go after young rookies that have great promise. How about you, Nate?
I mean, don't get me wrong. When you have someone like Patrick Mahomes, who on a per game basis, even last year, when you look at the fact that not a single receiver put up 1,000 yards, which is a good segue, except for the one person who did put up 1,000 yards, is Travis Kelce. And without Kelce still to put up over 5,000 yards and have the MVP season that he had, says that as they accrue weapons, I think that the floor is even more stable. The ceiling is somehow elevated. I'm not quite sure how that's going to foretell, because you don't know how much better he can get, but the weapons will grow. Justin Ross is a very dangerous weapon from size to match with MVS. He's got speed and hopefully health out of, Kadarius Toney. Let's not get too excited about that, of course. But what it does is, it gives me that feeling, sense of security, knowing that Mahomes is probably 1.3 compared to most other quarterbacks in terms of a per game basis. So I feel like I can even take the QB 16 or in that range and feel comfortable enough. So I like Kelce because Kelce gives me Mahomes is, I would say variance between the majority is a lot. Obviously, Kelsey, I shouldn't have said a lot. I'm sorry. That was very generic. But you get what I'm saying. Kelsey, of course, with the age, but I still see 3 years as him being in the top 2 or 3 tight end conversation. And you said this is tight end premium too, correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
stupid me. I didn't even think about it being tight end premium because I damn sure would have gone over there and not let you get that stack.
yeah, you probably should have done that. But at the same time, it is what it is. And so as time runs down, I now want to lock up. Here's a question I have for you guys. So I'm looking at this with the 3 flex. Of course, obviously in a PPR, we're going to want to probably go with the receiver. But I don't think taking 2 tight ends in this spot. I'm going to take Cooper Kupp. I really want to keep leaning. I like the idea of taking another tight end there, because you're not handcuffed to the one position. And it's not a bench fodder move. The value of another tight end, not to take. I mean, we're mocking, so I would never have these conversations beforehand. But
because this is exactly where I was going to ask you. Honestly,
okay.
You took Kelsey. The thought process, if it's a 1-point premium compared to a 2-point premium, and that if you're getting Kelsey at the 212, which is absolutely insane, how none of us, including myself, looked at Kelsey, or thought about getting Kelsey before some of these other players, especially in a tight end premium.
Right.
But Kelsey, and I'm going to take a tight end right here. So I'm gonna bring up his name's Kelsey and Pitts right there at that 2-3 turn. Was that even a thought process for you? And if it is, was it the premium of 1 or is it 2 that would make you do that?
It's a little combination of gamesmanship, I think, as well as just pure upside. And I wanted it to be Pitts. I will say I leaned back and forth between Pitts and Andrews in that conversation. And I have to wonder if maybe the increased weapons that they're building around Lamar Jackson will take something away from Mark Andrews as a whole. Like, I don't see any weapons in KC that makes me concerned with Kelsey's follow-up season as being as successful. But with Pitts, I mean, everybody's got a little bit of gun shy concern from last year. But there's no reason to think that he still did something that there's been one other tight end in the history of the NFL ever do in terms of yardage, and that was a quote unquote horrible bust year, many would say. So I don't think that would be bad. I would love to see what kind of running back receivers I would really put together if I had done that, and I should have, because I'm not quite certain I really like Cooper Kupp. I was rambling and got down to the 20 seconds and kind of wouldn't say panicked, but I feel like in a startup, maybe there was a few other names that might have been a little bit smarter to take there.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of paying attention to some of the chat that's going on in the mock room here. And one of the questions, about the Kelsey thing, Colin says he should have taken Kelsey at 112 or 201 there where he's on the opposite end of the turn. And then one of the other guys is like, for Dynasty, how many years is Kelsey going to play? Like you said, 2 or 3. But in Dynasty, especially if you're buying in, if there's a buy-in of any value, if you're going in, if you're going to go out there and win the first year, that first year should pay for your next 2 or 3 or 4 years if you just stay in that one league, right? So, I don't, the argument of, well, he's only going to be there for 2 or 3 years. So what? You win 1 or 2 of those years and ship him, he falls off your roster because he's retired or whatever the case is.
Right.
Here's at that point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also feel that when he's gone, the separation between Kelsey and it's not just a replaceable person each draft season. There doesn't seem like there's not a replacement quarterback every year for Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, or Lawrence, but yet that's what we've seen is each year we see these first round talents come through, but it was Kyle Pitts and Andrews, and then obviously like Hawkinson, but the drop off even after 3 years, I feel like the replacement level isn't as challenging for Kelsey to get elite value for 3 years, or at least elite upside for 3 years still, there's a, what's the right way to say that, replacement cost, and the risk is a little bit less to replace even just, league wide value or league average value at tight end. Does that make sense?
Yes. All right, let's get over here to just to get off the tight end for a second here. I want to get over here to Jorge. Jorge, you just snagged DK Metcalf. So let me read off the board now. I took Steph Diggs at the 2.9, Deshaun Watson at 2.10, Chris Olave at 2.11, Kelsey at 2.12, Kupp at 3.11, which we just talked about a little bit, Tyreek Hill at 3.2, Jonathan Taylor, Kyle Pitts, Breece Hall, Austin Eckler. Then we had a Higgins, and then you took DK Metcalf at 3.8.
Right.
Where are you at with the DK Metcalf? You've got the two quarterbacks. Andrews is still out there. A couple other tight ends are still out there. What was the thought process when you took DK Metcalf right there?
He's one of the last number one receivers that's on the board right now. He had a great season last year in Seattle. Them re-signing Geno, them, basically fortifying every single position on offense. It just, for me, I just wanted that high upside wide receiver. I don't really care that JSN is in town. I still think Metcalf is the guy. Lockett's not going to be there too much longer, you would think. And so JSN could potentially move to the outside, and you're still going to have DK Metcalf there. They'll probably take a quarterback next year, kind of groom for the future with Geno. But for right now, kind of like with the Kelsey discussion, there's nothing wrong with trying to win your dynasty league now.
Mm-hmm.
And DK Metcalf is only 25 years old, so there's plenty of time there. So he's more of the established number one. But right now, I'm going to take somebody who is technically the number two, but plays like a number one and had production like a number one. I'm going to take Devonta Smith for Philadelphia and have him as my second wide receiver here. So, I understand the nature of tight end premium, but I have some questions. There are some questions here. We talk about Hawkinson, who played well once he was traded to Minnesota. We have George Kittle, who's getting up there in age, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Kincaid, a bunch of rookies that are left on the board there. And then we can go down the list here and talk about the different ADPs, but I just want to play to the PPR upside. I want to play to the target volume. I want to, talk about the players who are going to get big plays also. And, these two wide receivers I felt were the best at the time, and they're young enough to still, have tread on their tires. I'm going to kill that expression by the end of the show today. I promise. Mm-hmm. It's like, yep, you're on your way to doing that. That was my thought process there. I can find tight end later on. But I really wanted these receivers.
So, Gator, I have a phrase. I'm following along with the chat, and they make some good points mentioning, not just to talk about my team or anything, but the idea when you're in a startup and you have a situation like I have done where I have Mahomes at 1 and I stack it with an expiring Travis Kelsey from a longevity standpoint, followed with the Cooper Kupp. So many would say that's a win now type build, and I wouldn't disagree. I would love to take credit and say, yeah, that's exactly. I would have just rather had Hill over Kupp, but regardless, Kupp was on pace to shatter every other receiving record, last year until he was hurt, and at that point, then you hope for a rebound to health, and that's obvious. But yet, he's coming to an end with this relationship with Matthew Stafford. Travis Kelsey's getting towards the end of his career. If you're in my spot, do you continue with the win now build to guarantee, or are you starting to diversify and going younger?
I mean, again, going back to what we were saying a minute ago, you're looking at you paid to play the game of mm-hmm. Dynasty, and you want to win. So if you look at it, it's a $50 league, right?
Right.
You win the first year. That's what, $600 roughly that pays for you. So yes, go win now. If that's the projecting that, and again, that goes back to what I said earlier. I honestly try to wait till about this point to make this decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course the board falls different ways each time. So
yeah,
where you're at, absolutely, it looks like it's a win now squad, and that's where you should be going. With your first 3 picks, because that's the way the board fell to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether you took Cup or whether you took Hill there, I don't think it really mattered. They're both getting up there in age. The news that Hill said he's going to play out this contract and then retire. Cup, we don't know what's going on with the Rams after this next year or so. I mean, is Matthew Stafford still going to be there? Whatever the case is. But for this year, Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp are going to be there. And like you started to bring up, Cooper Kupp was on pace to just absolutely obliterate, the receiving numbers when it comes to fantasy and his points per game. I think even missing games, he was still in the top 2 or 3 in points per game.
Exactly. And that's kind of there's a dilemma with this pick here, because now I have 2 of the 3 picks. There is, and each year people keep saying the same thing. When can Kelsey, or when will Kelsey slow down? And the easy answer is when he retires and he's sitting down, which I don't know will happen for 3, 4, 5 years. Nothing is said, hey, he looks to be on the decline. Cooper Kupp, on the other hand, probably is. So should I go safe and take something, I would say complimentary, but yet still running short? So I like Michael Pittman in this situation right here. I'm going to go that direction. Obviously, I have my concerns at the quarterback position in Indy, but if all things come true and we hope with what you would expect out of what pick was that? Pick
412.
At 2.8 for Anthony Richardson, is that you have his is of course predicated on his legs, but if there's a connection to be made, and we've seen that with Michael Pittman, that even on again bad season last year, his season wasn't that terrible when you looked at he was 27th or 20th in PPR, again on a down year. So I'm comfortable with that. I've got my 2 receivers. I feel like taking a look at running back would be a good move, but I'm going to go back to that win now spot and go with someone who I think is just going to be that question we had earlier, the bell cow back. And I don't know if there's one better right now than Nick Chubb, maybe Derrick Henry potentially, but I think that's about as close to here's someone that I love. My year 1, year 2 and 3, 4 and 5 might get a little sketchy, might get duped into some trades like you did earlier in the other league that you keep bringing up every year, Gator. But I love you for it.
You did.
I know it. But we're getting close to Jorge again, and Gator, you're on the clock right now, so let's dig into your brain a little bit. As dangerous and I would say maybe NC-17 as it may be, what's a PG way of thinking? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I was really, really hoping Drake London was going to fall to me right there. Even though I got Pitts, I just, I felt like Drake London is going to be, with Pitts and London out there, that they're going to be target hogs. I know that's going to be a run first offense, but there's 2 wide receivers in that offense, and it's Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna pivot right here. The obvious one, is a wide receiver out there in Vegas. But again, we're talking about somebody that, the quarterback questions out there are just insane. So I'm probably going to go, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dive into this tight end premium. Mm-hmm. And hammer it home that the, like you were saying earlier, I can play both of them with the multiple flex positions. So I'm going to go ahead and take Dallas Goedert right here, who I didn't love before last season. Mm-hmm. And after this past season, he's not the greatest tight end in the league by no means, but efficient, at least in my mind. He's efficient as hell when he gets the ball. And I was looking at DeAndre Swift there too. I still have my concerns with DeAndre Swift as far as the injuries.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. But man, I really like that upside. And to go back with the Drake London pick too, that was almost my pick instead of Pittman. That was who I went back and forth with. As I put in the chat, I really like Jim Bob Cooter. They're running that offense as far, especially considering what he did with Jacksonville's passing game last year. And I know that you can't make a pocket passer out of, I'd say, raw materials necessarily that's going to benefit Pittman. But I think that the two going forward, I don't think the gamble, the floor didn't really scare me as much as I feel like I wanted to be scared 2 months ago when I didn't know what the situation was going to be in Indy. Jorge, what do you think about the choice between Pittman and Drake London? Right as you're on the clock, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So yeah, let me take care of this one first. I think I'm going to stay true to my team here. My strategy so far, I'm going to stick with wide receiver. At this point, I'm just kind of, banking on rookie running backs kind of being able to hold down the fort for my roster as we get further down the draft. But I'm going to go with somebody who he's had some time off. He made a mistake, had some time off, and just happened to get traded to one of the most improved offenses last year with an improving quarterback, with a solid running back room. And give me some Calvin Ridley here to pair with to match up with Metcalf, Devontae Smith at the wide receiver position.
I really thought he was going to get back to me at 6'9". I really did, and to give me my stack. But I see how you want to be, Jorge. Okay, that's how it's going to be. And this is just a freaking mock, Jorge. You want to piss me off this way? Okay. All
right, yeah. So going back to your question, Nate, with Pittman and Drake London, we saw when Desmond Ridder got on the field that you were seeing a lot more improved passing connections between the quarterback and the wide receiver, specifically Drake London. You saw more efficiency from Drake London. Fantasy output was there. But again, this is a small sample size. Everything we're hearing out of the Colts camp right now is that Anthony Richardson looks even better than they thought he was going to look like heading in, coming out of the draft. And I love Josh Downs as much as anybody as a rookie, but at the same time, Pittman's been there longer. He is that veteran wide receiver. So, you look at the way the things are, like, let's assume Anthony Richardson pans out. Okay, well, they have a really good quarterback. They have Jonathan Taylor. They have a really good running back. And they still don't have, no disrespect to Mo Alley Cox there, Nate, but, they don't really have solidified the tight end position. I know, I just took a shot there. I know. So it really is still coming down to target volume for Pittman. The only issue last year is they didn't have a quarterback that can get him the ball in Matt Ryan, or as Keith Fleming of the Daily Fix Show said earlier, the corpse of Matt Ryan. Yeah, I'm liking the Pittman pick. Drake London, still a lot of question marks, and I get for Dynasty, you want to go, the idea is build for the long-term future, but you don't know what the long-term future is at the quarterback position. You know that the Colts invested in a first-round pick with Anthony Richardson for a reason. So, yeah, if I had to pick one of the two wide receivers, I'd do what you did and take Michael Pittman.
Good to know. I didn't see a ton. I mean, don't get me wrong. Adding Josh Downs is nice to the receiving room, but I don't know if it takes. I still feel like there's the upside in a 20%, 23% target share versus that being done in an Arthur Smith offense. But again, a lot's going to ride on acclimation of Anthony Richardson and to having enough opportunities.
Somebody in the chat is like, Mo Cox is 6'8". Show some respect.
Damn right, you show respect for Mack Truck. I like how I have 15 different nicknames for people that have no knowledge that they actually have said nickname. So, I mean, he might. Maybe other people say that. They don't want to say Mo Alley Cox, and they put two and two together that MAC makes a word, and then there's a truck that happens to coincide with that. But
yeah,
Jorge, what are you thinking here, man? You mentioned earlier about the running back room, and Gator, I'm talking probably over you as you were the eloquent host. So I apologize.
No, you are good to go, because I am actually sitting here. Jorge's done made me mad once tonight. I don't want to talk more. So you go right ahead and talk to Jorge.
part. I haven't had a lot of good opportunities to talk football this week, and not a lot of football conversations in the in the pool. So I was looking forward to getting back to this. So Jorge, all right, you've obviously clearly got your quarterback room locked up.
Right.
You've got your 2 receivers plus one of your flex, and you're still waiting for that first running back. You mentioned earlier about one of the rookies. Is that what your focus would be? Is maybe not necessarily the win now expiring contract? Are you looking for inject a little youth in the team now?
Yeah, I think I am going to look in that direction, but not with a rookie. I think I'm going to go with the second-year running back, who I think should see plenty of volume, even though they did bring in Devin Singletary.
Oh.
I really like Dameon Pierce here. Yes, they shut him down last year. Well, the team wasn't competitive, and he was nursing an injury, which doesn't exactly instill too much confidence in me. It's like, no, let this guy get some reps, let him do his thing. But when he was on the field, he was just very, very good. I'll remember that game on Thursday Night Football versus the Philadelphia Eagles. That defense just got eviscerated by Dameon Pierce. And that was one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. So, that on top of just how well and how hard he was running last year, I'm actually expecting the Texans to be a lot more competitive on offense, than they had been in previous seasons. Not as many 3-and-outs this year, more sustained drives, and Pierce should get the volume. Again, at this point, I have solidified my wide receiver core from somebody who's getting older there in Calvin Ridley all the way to Metcalf and Devonta Smith, who are still in their mid-20s. I understand I'm taking a risk here with Pierce that early, but I just like the production.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I understand. I do worry a little bit about Devin Singletary coming into that offense, just because it's like this is the same Devin Singletary that people were dismissing because, well, you got to, it's James Cook and Zach Moss before that, and yet he still continued to, in a high-powered offense, was still leaned on decently heavy. But that being said, all the positive, Dameon Pierce did nothing wrong to not gain the accolades and what Houston did from from an offensive line standpoint. There's a good chance that they're going to do one thing extremely well, is they're going to take some of the pressure off CJ Stroud, rely on the running game. They're I think in a division that against the run isn't exactly anything just absolutely dominating. So there's a good chance that they have that opportunity. I winced a little bit because J.K. Dobbins was who I was hoping was going to make it down to the end, but that's okay. So I touched on CJ Stroud just a second ago. What do you guys think? J-Dub there at pick 9.
First of all, J.K. Dobbins was not making it to you because that was the guy that I was targeting him there.
Oh, man.
To you.
I bet it's making you feel a little bit better.
Well, I have a question for both of you. It's looking at Arizona Cards right here. We are now in the sixth round. He's made his pick, Miles Sanders. Arizona Cards is with in the 11 spot, Big Booty. No QBs to this point. Surprise.
No, I mean, you're playing the deep veteran game, right? And you're hoping that next year you get an early first round pick and get one of these rookies that are coming out next year. I think probably at this point, but you still have some serviceable ones right now that could help you win. You have, coincidentally or not, in a superflex, you have Geno pairing Geno with Derek Carr. That sounds so gross to say. I'm so sorry. But you have, can Trey Lance take something here? Will Levis, wow, the Dynasty 365 people will crucify me for saying this on Wednesday, but you still have Will Levis there as a potential long-term play if he pans out. So,
man, I hate to ever go in to a start. Maybe that's just my naivety as far as startups go with quarterbacks, is to have to rely on ones that, like Will Levis, we don't know a position. So is he you're hoping to gain him? Number one, you from an ADP standpoint, he would have to be your 1.5. He could be your 2 if you went boom boom shotgun real quick here.
Right.
But then you have to take a third immediately because you need at least, you don't have to have 2 starters as Superflex. That's the one thing that I will say that's nice in Superflex, especially the ones that are 4-point passing touchdowns. You can pivot and not get hurt. In a 2 touchdown league or 2 QB league, that's extremely different situation. So I think that's one of the mistakes that a lot of newer players, myself included, when I first got into Superflex, I just immediately pigeonholed myself into Superflex has to be a quarterback. And you miss out on good value because you're reaching for a person like maybe even I don't want to use Matthew Stafford as an example, but someone in that. Let's use Mac Jones as an example because he's fucking terrible if you ask me. No offense, but
no offense.
No offense. I said with all due respect.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's damn right. Damn is Geneva Convention and all. But yeah, just not thrilled with that idea that you have to jump that quarterback into the super flex spot. All right, Nate's going to get back to paying attention to who I'm going to draft here real quick. And
well, so while you're doing that, Jorge, question for you, because I love what Nate brought up there right there. With it being a super flex, you don't have to play, it doesn't have to be a quarterback in that position.
Right.
And, if it's a 4-point touchdown or, passing touchdown, you will be fine with a wide receiver or even a second tier running back in that position. But question is, if it's a 6-point passing touchdown, does it make it more, relevant in your mind to make sure you have that solid, whether it be a QB2, but not maybe, you don't want to be a QB3, but that QB2 being there in that flex or in that super flex spot. For instance, a Derek Carr, a Daniel Jones, a Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins type.
So Tyler Harrison, who I believe I'm in the PBR division for Scott Fishbowl with him, if memory serves me correctly. I could be wrong. I know there's a Tyler in there somewhere. Brought up a very good point here. There are a few older tier 2 quarterbacks that can still score 15 to 20 points per game. Yes, having the 6-point passing touchdown thing obviously increases the value of a quarterback for your QB2. But if I can get in the third round a player that's going to give me QB2 averages of 15 to 20 points a game, like, what am I really missing out on by not having my second super flex spot, or having my super flex spot rather be a quarterback? For me, yeah. For me, I'm all about value. I like grabbing value. You are not. Well, you better sign up, man. Come on, Tyler, sign up for Scott Fishbowl. They're just announcing.
Let me clarify who Tyler Harrison is. That's our newest writer at Fantasy and Frames.
I'm aware. Yeah. I know Fallen. He can still sign up. He's good.
Fallen, you need to sign up, by the way. You need to sign up. And an article coming out on fantasyandframes.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Talking about Miles Sanders. So get ready for that.
And he stayed on brand, taking Miles Sanders at 6'7". So just so everybody knows.
That's awesome. Yeah, Nate. So we have 2 Tylers now. And so this Tyler goes by Fallen because that's his gamer handle. So we have a Tyler and we have a Fallen Tyler. Or just go ahead.
What is the gamer handle from which specific game, Tyler, if you would not that I play, but
Fallen Angel, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know what games.
Gotcha. Because in our Scott Fish league, the league that I'm in is with a gentleman who is being asked to host it again. His name's Michael Vila. And Mike started a company called the World Fantasy Championship, which is, and I'm going to do a poor job of this, but essentially what it is he takes the e-gaming community, and I don't know which games it is, and that's shame on me for not knowing. I can look it up and find it real quick, but that it is his evolution is getting players like Player X is what is a new one that they started up, and that has Juju already wore his cleats, and other players like AJ Dillon, and to name just a few, but there's plenty of others out there. he hosts our fantasy draft last year, and that's how I had AJ Dillon announce my draft pick for me, which was Aaron Rodgers, which I wish I could take back 1,000 times over, of course. But regardless, I digress. And this year we plan on having Juju at the draft, not maybe in person, but via Zoom, amongst a few others that are all going to be a part of it. So if Tyler plays in any of the leagues that would be on that site and or would be beneficial to him, I can put them in contact, and maybe that could up his game, especially if he wants to go pro playing games. That happens now, right? That's a thing.
That's a thing. That's a thing.
A big thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't have video games when I was a kid.
I do not. I have not got
video games when you were a kid.
I have not gotten my Scott Fishbowl invite yet. If I don't, I'm good with that too. It's all about charity anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But you both have gotten your invites.
Correct.
Where are you drafting as far as locations? I think you're doing a live draft, right, Nate?
Mm-hmm. Here in St. Louis with Michael Vila and most of the people that did it last year as well.
What position are you drafting in?
4.
Oh, nice. Jorge, you are doing what?
So originally I was going to do the live Washington, D.C. draft, but my family's going to be taking their vacation that week. So I switched to the online. So I'm in the Pabst Blue Ribbon division at the 6th spot.
At the 6th spot. Okay, so the reason I brought that up is, these invites are going out. Scott started that late Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotten a few of those out there. There's going to be thousands of them. When we finally get all of the point scoring,
mm-hmm.
I plan on doing some mocking at the dark Scott Fishbowl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I would, 100%. I'll jump on probably as many of those as possible. And especially once people, like you said, get their draft spots, because it's the one thing about if you're listening and you've never played in the Scott Fishbowl, it's number one, I see it as an honor to be asked to play. And many people look at the industry leagues and they think it's just a way for an individual to, shit out their promo for their site or their work and say, look at me. And then they quit by week 6 because they don't care. There's no money on the line. And pride is not pride. You can't pay the electric bill. Pride. I get it. Some people want the Skrilla and they want to do it that way, but I don't get it. Don't take a spot from someone else that would dream to play alongside a Jorge Edwards or a Gator J and have that opportunity. And so when you get it, we started, I think I've had the 11th pick and the 5th pick, and the chats and the the groups that are that long are incredible. And that's pretty solid for Big Booty Dude to get, Love and Gino there at 7 and 8.
Wow.
I mean, I like that. I do. I think that tight end premium addressed Freiermuth and got Dalton Kincaid that late, mm-hmm. and still added Quentin Johnson on go along with Garrett Wilson and have Bijan and Ramondre. That was a good way to build that and get, two very solid. And Gino, who knows? I mean, let's say if this draft was a month ago before he signed his extension, isn't that about as long as it was?
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
Yeah, give or take 6 months, Nate, you dumb shit.
No,
right on par.
I didn't want to be a dumbass and say like 2 months, but I think it was like March, basically, whenever that was, a couple months ago.
2 months.
That was damn near 3. So yeah, but either way, I feel much more comfortable, especially with the weapons he has.
Well, no, and going back to a question I had earlier between, he was one that I brought up because there was no quarterbacks at that point. And
correct.
We don't know what Jordan Love's going to be as a starter, but we've seen what Geno Smith is, and they did nothing in Seattle except give him more weapons, mm-hmm. right? So, yeah. I mean, he had over 4,000 yards passing. He attempted 500 and some odd passes last year, so he's going to be throwing the ball. Whether that's yes, they're still going to hand the ball off, but I mean, Charbonnet is going to be a pass catcher as well, so mm-hmm. they're throwing the ball. They added Jackson Smith and Jigba. They've got Tyler Lockett and DK. So the Geno Smith in the 8-2 spot is just, I don't know how that's not value, right? So that's got to be some value right there.
Mhm.
My question is why did he take Jordan Love before Geno Smith? he got lucky. He got lucky that Colin already had 2 quarterbacks and didn't go after Geno right there.
We got Jamie in the chat right here saying, "Gator, yo, if
That's
Jamie
fun.
was in this mock draft, he would have already drafted Roshan Johnson.
Yep, Jamie would have drafted Roshan Johnson at 1-2.
Pretty much. That's how much he loves Roshan Johnson.
What's going on, Jamie? Glad to have you in tonight. Guys, while you're in here, please do not hesitate. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We are on the way to 500. We will be at the goal was 500 before the start of the season, or at the start of the season. We're gonna smash that if you guys keep hitting that subscribe button, and we do appreciate it. We will keep bringing you content like this on a spur of the moment. You know, we've got the normal shows coming out every week, and Mocking After Dark will come out, you know, sporadically here and there. We will do more and more of these as the season gets closer. Of course, we've got Scott Fishbowl, like we just talked about. We're going to do some startups, both one quarterback, super flex. We're going to have different guests on doing it. Like we have Nate tonight. We had Jason Snyder a couple weeks ago. So yeah, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, smash that bell button so that you know when we are going live or when we're dropping new content, whether it be shorts or live shows. So I am on the clock here and I'm not even paying attention. I've got 30 seconds to go. Man, I have no clue what I need. Don't even know what I want. Okay, here we go. I'm back in the game now. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and get this stack right now. I know he's a wide receiver 2 on his own team, but I'm going to go ahead and take Christian Kirk right here, and snag the stack with Trevor Lawrence right here, and that probably will round out my wide receiver position, at least in this draft. So now I can focus on sniping people.
Nice, very nice. And for those of you, we have 4 podcasts running during the summer. We're going to have some amazing guests on: Bob Harris from Football Diehards, Dave Richard, Heath Cummings from CBS, Howard Bender and Brett Flynn from Fantasy Alarm. We got Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros, Andy Behrens from Yahoo, Kate Majuk from the Ball Bless podcast, Eric Booty from ESPN. I mean, if you go to our Twitter handle at Fantasy and Frames, pinned at the very top, you'll see the list of our incoming guests for the summer, and we're still adding people as we speak. So it is, we are very happy and honored that all these guests who we've looked up to for years are joining us, and we can't wait to talk shop with them and for you all to interact with us while we're talking with them. So definitely make sure to tune in on Wednesday nights, starting at 8 p.m. And on Thursday nights, we got our best ball show on Thursdays at 8 p.m. with Stacy and Stephanie. So a lot of stuff coming your way, just to echo Gator sentiments. So if you're on the YouTube channel right now, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, all that jazz.
So Nate, what do you got going on? Anything special with you going on? Oh wait, you're on the clock. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's special, I guess, is I have to look at, both Charbonnet and Devin Ashane to go in front. But again, this is a situation where, like, let's look at a startup type scenario. I know I have 2 aging running backs. I know I have 2 running backs that I'm comfortable this year that when I can throw out Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry as my 2 to go along with Kelsey Mahomes, and I still need that super flex. In a mock with only 10 rounds, I realize that there will be, I think this happens more times than not, that third quarterback's going to get taken. If anything more than, like, right now, Arizona Cards has none. And so do I see 3 quarterbacks that I would be happy with taking? I mean, yes and no. So I would take one now. I feel like I want to say the gamesmanship in me just doesn't, because I know I'll eventually get one of the top 3 because no one else would probably take their third to fill out the roster. But I want to hear your opinion on this specific quarterback, because I've grown a little more intrigued with just the addition of the head coach. And we saw this in the same city when a little individual named John Elway had his best season, then fell into the trap of multiple bad seasons. And then all of a sudden new offensive coordinator steps in, new head coach, and he puts back-to-back seasons. And the same thing with Sean Payton with Russell Wilson. I don't love anything about Russell Wilson except being with Sean Payton and the weapons he has. I want to hear you guys' take on Wilson, because especially in a league like a Scott Fishbowl, when we start getting there in Superflex leagues, Russell Wilson is a 2 behind a Patrick Mahomes that you get in the 8th round. Could be, and I hate to use the word league winning, because that's just, it is, it is what it is. But there's a chance for a rebound much better than what we saw last year. We obviously have to, I'm going to throw last year out completely. The death of his best friend and mental health coach was probably impactful.
Right.
I don't know. I just want to hear what you guys kind of think about Russ.
Well, first of all, Jorge took the sound drop off that I wanted to grab right there. But Russell Wilson,
you gotta be unlimited. You gotta have a thought process of being unlimited. So when people ask you, what you're thinking about or what you want to do in life or where you want to go, you gotta be unlimited. Tell them I'm unlimited. You know what I mean?
I want to take my pick back.
Take my pick back.
Anytime I hear that, I just want to take my pick back.
So so to answer your question, and you mentioned Scott Fishbowl. This, I think, for Scott Fishbowl, he would be a quarterback that I would drastically be avoiding, because I believe, if memory serves me correctly, they took away points from the quarterback for incompletions last year. I could be wrong, or they maybe added points took away points for interceptions. I want to say incompletions, though. They took away points. So that kind of concerns me.
So basically, the completion percentage dictates your scoring.
You want to be over
66.7% roughly is the way you don't lose points. And yes, an interception return for a touchdown is a -6 points instead of just a -2. But yeah, I understand completely. So let's ask this, Jorge. Knowing that going in, of the remaining quarterbacks, since this isn't a Scott Fish, I didn't draft in that same regards, but
sure, yeah.
Derek Carr would already be long gone in Scott Fish type scoring.
Correct.
A few other names. Where would you put Aaron Rodgers in that conversation? Long gone as well, correct?
Probably, yeah.
Same.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, he would be gone. Derek Carr would be gone, like you said. Man, aside from there, it's really tough, because you just don't know what you're getting in the rest of these quarterbacks. I mean, I'm going to go with the guy who. No, I'm not going to. I was going to make an argument for Sam Howell, but I just can't do it. Sorry. The homer in me was trying so hard. If Brock Purdy wasn't having these issues with his arm, and he kept on pushing back surgery and whatever the rationale with it is here. I mean, I think for Scott Fishbowl, he could be somebody who could be a potential quarterback for you. But again, it's the health issues that you have to run, through your head. But getting back here, getting with my pick, I haven't addressed the tight end position, so I'm going to go with Sam Laporta in Detroit. All the talk out of Lions camp has been about Gibbs. It's been about Laporta. Using Laporta more, not so much as a blocker, but as a receiver. Go figure, right? So, yeah, definitely want to lock up that position. And JDub728, I hate you. I wish nothing but horrible things for you for the rest of your life for taking Alexander Madison right there. Just kidding. Wouldn't really say that to you. Or maybe I would over the internet, but not in person. So, JDub, that was a very good pick by you for Alexander Madison, who I believe is only 25 years old still. Dalvin Cook could get released after June 1st, and walking into the starting role there on a Vikings offense. Yeah, that was a solid pickup right there, Jada.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And knowing that most everybody after you, Jorge, has a tight end that they're comfortable with, most likely Laporta could have probably fallen back to you, and you could have taken Madison. Yeah, but you also did just go running back. Gator, quick question. Draft philosophy.
Words.
You go in, you go into a situation like Jorge and you take 3 running backs because value falls, and you're like, yeah, love Damian Pierce there, love Isaiah Pacheco there, love Kendrick Miller. All of a sudden, you're like, oh man, there's still value in Alexander Madison, but I don't want to go for running backs and just forego that. I need to, pivot a little bit. What do you do in that situation? With Jorge, because clearly he has running back position locked up, but Studiev still went with his good value and missing it by a pick because he wanted him.
When you look at roster construction and when you look at value, again, we're looking at a startup and we're only doing the first 10 picks. There's going to be plenty, that are left on the board after this.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I set it up tonight was to get your starting lineup in there. But if you're doing a normal where you have, a normal startup where you have the benches, and that sort of thing, at that point, I think, Jorge is going to go ahead and take Madison over Laporta because, like you said, the teams after him already have their starting tight ends. Laporta will probably be there when he gets back. I would have rather had Madison just because the same reason I took Dalvin Cook at 7-4. We still don't know what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook, right? So it's very possible that Alexander Madison is going to be the starting running back in Minnesota. And I would have rather taken that dart throw over Laporta, even though I believe Laporta is going to be a very good player. It's just a matter of where I'm getting him on the board, right? So I can see where Jorge's sitting there going to at least fill out the roster. But we are also, because there is no bench right now, but if we're just going after value, then yeah, it's going to be Madison over Laporta for me.
If there's one thing about draft season that I love is the grunt back to back.
I had his stats pulled up, magnified on my window, and then I closed the window, and J-Dub again took my guy. So for me, it's going to come down to either Tank Bigsby or Mike Evans.
That's great.
Yeah, Mike Evans is great for that 40-point game once a year, and then he has Baker Mayfield throwing him the ball, obvious downgrade. So let me go for the. This is so tough. I really wish there was a better option here that I would feel comfortable with, but you know what? Screw it. Give me some Tank Bigsby to finish up my roster.
If I'm not mistaken, Mike Evans had that 48-point game with
the championship week.
Baker Mayfield, right?
No,
it wasn't.
It wasn't with Baker Mayfield. It was not. No, it was not. No.
Kyle Trask, exactly. Yeah,
that is the Baker Mayfield. That's yeah.
It wasn't him either.
No, Brady was still there. It was still Brady. Let's see.
Wait, Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield are the same person?
No. Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield are the same person. I've seen
that.
Nobody has ever seen them in the same room at the same time. Just pointing out the obvious.
Tell that to a Fallen right here who's like, don't sleep on Baker this season. I mean, Look, he has plenty of weapons around him. It's not like that's not going to be an issue. It's just, is he going to get the ball to them, or is he going to go to the wide receiver 3? Is he going to go to Russell Gage as opposed to when they had Odell Beckham in Cleveland and Jarvis Landry and he went to DPJ or whatever the third wide receiver was there? Like, just, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. I'll say one thing. Going back to not to talk too much about Russ, but at the 8-12 there, looking ahead at every other person, I would have been just as content with Jimmy G. I would have been just as content with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know about Macker, Kenny Pickett necessarily for my personal take, but let's compare the two. What do you guys think? So Arizona Cardinals waited to get 2 in a super flex, and they got Jimmy G, Mac Jones versus Big Booty, who, the 2 rounds preceding that went Jordan Love and Geno Smith. Which combo do you think that Love and Smith is exponentially better than Jimmy G and Mac Jones?
I guess my thing on the Jimmy G, Mac Jones is, I don't mind the Jimmy G pick because of the weapons Jimmy G has.
Right.
Mac Jones is just so.
Oh, I had my sentiments earlier.
Whatever. I would rather have Derek Carr over Mac Jones. I would rather have Desmond Ridder over Mac Jones. I would rather have Matthew Stafford over Mac Jones at that point. But if that's where you're going to wait to go get your quarterback, okay.
So Tyler's bringing up a good point here that I completely didn't even put together, and I just got this right now, that Mac Jones is reuniting with his offensive coordinator. I totally forgot that Brian was the offensive coordinator at Alabama when Mac Jones was there. So that did not think about that. Thanks,
doesn't change a thing. Doesn't change a thing. He doesn't have Waddle. He doesn't have anybody that was at Alabama other than his OC.
So let me ask you guys a question. We're talking Dynasty, we're talking startups. Are you surprised Will Levis is still on the board? Would you rather have taken a gamble on Will Levis over Mac Jones?
Well, no, because Will Levis is not a starter right now.
But you're building for the future, right? You're hoping.
I think the mindset when you do a startup, like especially a mock that's only 10 rounds, we're just basically
that's the concern.
The starters. I think that's the mindset. Right now he is not a starter.
Yeah, it does. I will say a 10-round mock changes your philosophy a little bit on building, because you're building at this point. You're not going to fill in the rest of your starting roster. For me, like with my third flex spot, like there's a chance that with Roschon Johnson, that earlier pick is one that I would be fine with where he went, but I'm not going to like it seeing him as a day-to-day starter if I look at this as my, opening season roster until Khalil Herbert is upended, which wouldn't take long. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not worried about D'Onta Foreman. It does change. I don't know. It changes just the mindset. There's a couple different things, want to be in a mock, but there's a lot of names that I normally would have probably already addressed by now, or at least would have bounced up over some of the other guys. I don't know if I'd have taken, I don't know. Some of the values are great. Like Aaron Jones right there is really good, because especially if he's, what situation, where would he fall to if he went, what team would be most beneficial for Aaron Jones, I guess is the right way to say this as I try to research for a pick. Sorry.
I mean, the obvious answer, if they were to trade him right now, it would be Miami, right? Because that's where every running back wants to go or needs to go. That nobody wants to maybe the Bills. We don't know what James Cook is.
What about Arizona? Are you sold on James Conner and his long-term up? I mean, I guess you're not thinking long-term for either of them, right? But if you had to pick one, would you rather have Aaron Jones or James Conner?
Well, okay, let's think about it this way from the player's perspective as well. Is he going to want to go to Arizona? Does he want to go there and sit, and basically play football for the next 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is, with no chance to win, 5 games in the next 2 years? So, that's some of it too. Is they're not doing anything in Arizona to build up to be a high-powered, offense, let alone a winnable team.
Mm-hmm.
That does matter to players. I mean, everybody wants to shit on Tampa and what Tampa's done, but Tampa's building it from the inside out. Washington building it from the inside out.
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go with that. Is that Aaron Jones, would he want to go to Washington given the fact that they have some pieces on offense and defense? Is that a place that he could potentially thrive? Are you sold on Brian Robinson? Are you sold on Antonio Gibson long term, or at least in the next 3 years, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question, though, and great landing spot. If there's so much extracurricular stuff with Washington right now, you can't even concentrate on what Washington is doing on the field because there's so much drama off the field.
Oh, I'm still celebrating there's no more Dan Snyder, so I'm in a constant state of being hungover because it's that awesome. That's just me.
I think that's a great landing spot.
I think the running back position is just a landmine of potential chaos that the earlier the drafts you have, like with Scott Fish that happens in July, I guess, and some of the other, leagues that have already begun their drafts, et cetera, and not just the rookie drafts, but going in, there's 3 names that could 100% change by season's beginning that could have an impact. And 2 of the names I'll put together as one. So 2 of the 3, I guess. You still have the free agent situation between Zeke and Kareem Hunt that could always, you don't know. I mean, there's 2 trains of thought with that. When you bring in a person like Zeke, more so than Kareem Hunt, is it foolish to think that whatever the OC or the head coach going into that situation, when they bring him in, says, let's run this fool into the ground and get as much usage out of him as we can for a limited amount of money, because it's been a while since he signed, or complimentary piece? Regardless, the introduction of one or the other, I think, does diminish the value of whomever's backfield they go into. 2 and 3 then is Dalvin Cook, as we talked about, and then Aaron Jones. Nick Chubb, I'm not going to go into I know his name's been mentioned in trade talks and everything else, but I don't really believe that that's a situation that Cleveland is willing to entertain quite yet. They need somebody to take some of the pressure off of Deshaun Watson as he tries to get comfortable with his second season there. But what do you guys do? I mean, do you even bother with the uncertainty of that? Or does that move a couple of the other guys up? Does that move a player like Bijan up or CMC because you don't think they'll actually land in situations like that?
So I guess are you asking me, do you trust the talent and the performance of recent seasons and saying wherever they end up, they're going to perform?
I don't want to say it like that because I don't want to make it seem like I am a buyer of any of those at the specific changes or moves they make.
Nate does not want me to know and capitalize yet again
on helping him finish. What'd you get? 5th? Good job.
I got all these picks now.
Yeah.
Boom shakalaka.
that was my team was pretty good though. I mean, it really isn't bad. It was my lack of, I will admit, and I hate to even admit this, is I didn't think the league was, didn't feel like it was long standing based off of some of the changes that had happened year to year. And I thought, well, if the league's going to disband or it's not going to be long lasting, I'm going to go ahead and just trade every future pick because I don't give an F. And I'm just going to gather what I can, which was Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel, and somebody else, I believe.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. And then I gained like 65 first-round picks.
You did.
Gotta love it.
So
are we done? Is that it?
To answer your question, or you try to answer your question, when it comes to the running back, going back to what we've early in the show when we talked about it, the running back is a 3 to 4, maybe 5 years on the average, right? So there's not a very long shelf life for them.
No,
I would. When it comes to even the Nick Chubb, yes, we know he's going to have probably a damn good year again this year. Dalvin Cook probably going to have a damn good year this year. Aaron Jones probably still going to be dominant, in Green Bay, if they all stay in their current positions. But if I can get a Zach Charbonnet plus for a Dalvin Cook or for an Aaron Jones. Yeah, I think I'm smashing that, right? It's even though we know that Charbonnet is going to be behind, or at least we assume he's going to be behind Walker there in Seattle. I'm gaining. I feel like I'm gaining something by getting that second pick next year, or whatever that pick is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answers your question because between the trade that I kicked your ass in, that I won. In all, I lost what we were actually talking about.
Nate's response to that right now is
motherfucker.
That is Nate's response.
Hey, unless you win a championship from a trade,
You ain't winning.
to me, nobody's winning yet. So at the end of the day, if you finish fourth versus the other person's sixth, and the two trades never amount to one of the two teams winning a championship, then it is moot. And honestly, that's what every trade, regardless of going in, should 100% be. How can two teams leverage deficiencies in their roster and gain?
Mm-hmm.
And many people, and that's the reason I hate the questions when you do the mailbag episodes or whatever it is. And like, so I'm looking, I have 5 running backs. I've got, A, B, C, D, and E, and I'm looking to move one of them. Who should I target? And I just think that's the most, I don't want to say it's the most asinine question, because I don't want to humiliate anybody that actually asks those questions, because it's very easy to look in and say, all right, so I have, Josh Jacobs is my RB5 on this dynasty. What type of receiver should I look to get in return? Is Christian Kirk good value? And is DeAndre Hopkins fair? All those questions could be yes or no's, but look at the team that has, one of those receivers you just mentioned as their wide receiver 4 or 5, and then go into that, that scenario. I don't know how we started talking about the trade stuff again. I think we were talking about looking at what I would think is looking at the teams that were built and discussing what we think of that so far.
Right. That's so like my Kicks is Clean is asking, which teams do you like outside your own? Gator, let's go back to you, man. Like, if you had to pick a team that you really, really liked in this draft, let's break it down. Which team is jumping out to you?
So when I'm looking at I guess I'm going to look at the first 4 rounds to start with. I like what Sniper Cat did there. Actually, the first 5 rounds to start with. He went heavy RB to start with, but he got great RBs with Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, and then DeAndre Swift. The other one that I like, I really like what Colin did at the 12 spot, getting Waddle, Lamb, Barkley, and then coming back with Kyler Murray and Tony Pollard in that first round, or the first 5 rounds. Then he just cleans up at the end with Cousins, Marquise Brown, Darren Waller. The only thing I don't like that he didn't do, he doesn't have a stack on there. And I do like to try to get a stack in that first,
He's Kyler Murray to Hollywood. That's kind of a stack.
Is Hollywood going to be there by the time Murray gets back? I don't know.
That's a fair question.
But I mean, again, we're talking dynasty, so as long as this year goes, next year that he will have that stack right away. I hate to say how much I like Jorge's team, but damn it, I do like Jorge.
You can say it. It's okay. I won't hold it against you.
No, you're gonna actually bring it up every time, like I bring up Nate's trade. But I'm not gonna do that. Nate, which one is your favorite?
I don't know if I want to play a favorite card, but I'll say that some of the later round, again with 10-round drafts, the later rounds are rounds 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is real more middle rounds. But I won't say that, like, honestly, Gator from pick 7, 8, 9, 10, I think you got as good a value in those picks as any. I'm not going to say the overall team versus the others. I'm not knocking you in any way or building you up too much, but to get you leverage age in a fashion that you say, hey, I'm getting 2 elite, could be elite, 1 elite, 1 in quarterback position. 2 is a very volatile QB2. There's an upside for him to be, with the weapons he has and the team he has, to be a QB top 6, top 7 quarterback in the league for the next 5-6 years. And I would say longer, but I think that the history has taught us that the amount of concussions that you have is indicative of how long you'll play in this league at a high level like that. But it's elite. And so I like the balance you have of veterans with youth. Obviously, you would stack on more rookies or second year guys as the draft went on. But I'm looking at each one, and what do you think? What do you think the first thing people look at when they try to evaluate teams when in a super flex? Do they look at the quarterback position first? Jorge, is that what you look at first? Let's ask you. I throw you 10, 12 teams.
Yeah.
You don't know any of the people. You weren't following along, and I go, rate this draft, which is a hard question to do, first of all. What's the first thing you look at?
Yeah, quarterbacks, yes. Most importantly, who's their second quarterback? Because then that tells me a lot as far as like what their strategy was. Like, did they go elite right off the bat and just kind of fill in, afterwards, or were they taking advantage of talent at their cost and just loading up their squad that way? That kind of gives you an idea there. And so if you're doing it, if you're going quarterback, right off the bat, I don't know. I've noticed in some mocks and some drafts I've done this year that you're seeing people who kind of go quarterback right off the bat, kind of go for those immediate impact players that can help you win now versus the long-term build, versus, teams where you have they're anchoring, a quarterback, and then they kind of build for the future and kind of like get that veteran quarterback towards the end. So they're thinking more about the 3 to 5 year, plan right there. Speaking of a team that I thought really crushed the latter portion of the draft from round 6 and on, I'm a huge believer in building through wide receiver. So Pickens, Jamo, Dotson, and then Jonathan Mingo at the end in Carolina. I thought that was a very really awesome pick for a player that should be the number 1 wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, if not towards the end of this year, definitely heading into next year. Really a huge fan of Jonathan Mingo. Stacey Perez, she loves Jonathan Mingo over on Dynasty 365. Cole Kmet to pair with Justin Fields. It makes me wonder what the usage or utilization is going to be for him, given the fact that the Bears just brought on Robert Tonyan from the Packers. So there is that there, but I really do like this draft for Swiper the Cat. And then the person next to him, Arizona, I can't read the entire full name, but the Arizona guy with the...
That's Tyler. That's Tyler Harrison.
Oh, that's him. Okay, well, fallen. Really like your wide receiver depth. And here's the thing. I know each and every single one of us here on this draft and everybody watching and everybody who participated, we all kept going by Devontae Adams in our round by round, and it's like, who's going to go for the old guy? Who's going to go for the old guy? Who's going to go for the old guy that's still producing, that could probably still help you win a title this year? So kudos to him for grabbing that. Miles Sanders, he gets a brand new situation in Carolina. We'll see. Terry McLaurin, obviously the homer in me appreciates that. I like the Garoppolo Michael Mayer combination right there.
And that's the problem, though, is he triple stacked right there in Vegas with Mayer, Adams, and Garoppolo, right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's more of like a win now move, right? I guess, right? Would you say that would be accurate?
Yeah, I think so, to an extent. I mean, it's not like a situation similar in San Francisco wasn't possible with Jimmy G. And
there is a huge difference, in my opinion. Jimmy G and Derek Carr are completely two different people. Derek Carr throws the ball down the field. Jimmy G does not. Adams thrives going down the field. I think Michael Mayer is going to be the better matchup on this team. That's one of the reasons I kept passing up Devontae Adams. As elite of a wide receiver as he is, the quarterback situation, trying to get him the ball, is what's going to matter. And he's going to be a 31-year-old wide receiver. Whether that's a thing or not, it's still, he doesn't have a quarterback right now that is going to get him the ball down the field.
Right. But maybe system, and that's one thing. Maybe the more of the West Coast derivative in San Francisco was keeping him and his deep ball under wraps just a little bit. Now, granted, we didn't see it all with Jimmy G just in San Francisco, but isn't there maybe a relationship as well? I'd have to look at that. I think I'm getting ready to speak out of turn by not knowing this, and I don't want to do that. Is the reunion in Vegas as far as to some regards? Is there a familiarity there? Will he let him unleash? I don't know if what's the carryover between McDaniels and Jimmy G.
Here's the thing. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, Carr goes deep. Carr is one of the most accurate deep ball quarterbacks in the NFL. Devontae. I mean, say what you will about Josh McDaniel. He has to be capable of finding a way of scheming one of the best wide receivers in football to get open and to be functioning in this offense. Like, I think people, when they get scared away from Devontae Adams, I'm like, well, who are you expecting to pick up the slack? You think Jacoby Myers is going to take that huge step forward in this offense, and Devontae Adams is going to be left in the dust? Like, Devontae Adams, I feel like, is still a player that, talent wise can get it done. I don't know, but I guess you and I are going to have differing opinions on this one, Gator. But I can see where you're coming from.
I don't think for 1 second that Adams is not still going to be an elite player. My concern is when you look at last year, there was 3 or 4 games where he was just running wide open behind the defense, and all Carr had to do was throw it up. Jimmy G is not that guy. Devontae Adams gets out there and runs wide open. Jimmy G is not going to be able to get him the ball. I have not seen it with Jimmy G. I don't see the arm. Like, if Anthony Richardson's there, and whatever, Will Levis is there, they can sling the ball all over the yard. I don't see Jimmy G having the arm. Hey, I will be the first one, because I have so many shares of Devontae Adams. I will be happy to be wrong on this.
But even at the value, so at the spot where he's taken is the wide receiver 4, the flex 3, flex 2 in this equation, even
you're still planning
25% reduction in Devontae Adams just from the lack of those, once every other game where Devontae's running free and it's not schemed to him. Mm-hmm. The value is okay. The longevity, of course, is the question. It's like, that's why where he went, I had serious consideration going back to at the at the 412 where Pittman was taken, and like I said, it was Pittman, Drake London. Devontae Adams is very much in that equation as well. Mm-hmm. It just the lack of upside without an elite arm superseded. Granted, the unknown of Michael Pittman and the unknown of Drake London as far as an evolution without that elite quarterback, or without the unknown or the known commodity there, it makes that's a challenge. That's one of the hard things about a draft like this, is you look at players and in that grouping, and I can go through each one of them. Michael Pittman, obviously the wart on the resume is the unknown of, is Anthony Richardson going to be someone that, if Pittman can take a 23 to 25% target share, what does that amount to? Is that going to be enough? Versus Devontae Adams, who has shown that he can have a 25% target share. But again, that's a diminished one as a result of Jimmy G versus a Derek Carr, a more efficient and the over-the-top approach. Christian Watson is the next receiver in that grouping who has a completely different situation. No Aaron Rodgers anymore, of course, Jordan Love, and not much competition. It just feels like that whole grouping is kind of very similar. And then you wait 3 rounds. Let me ask you guys that. You're choosing between a combination of, say, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Calvin Ridley in that round 5 range. Or do you just go with that, I don't want to call it win now approach, but look at round 7 receivers outside of Jameson Williams and Treylon Burks, who I get where they're going there. But Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, Diop, and Hollywood Brown, I think the value in the 7th round for all 4 of those is pretty incredible, especially for the unknown of what we're going to have. Am I foolish to think that?
Some of them do. I kind of feel I'm out on Hopkins, but I do like the Ayuk. There's all this talk about, he could potentially be traded. He's not going anywhere. They're not getting. I think that's just a lot of smoke. Jameson Williams, I think that's great value. Obviously the suspension probably is pushing him down for the draft boards, but You mentioned Traylon Burks and Terry McLaurin. That kind of ties into a question I have with Gator going to his pick with Jerry Jeudy. He could have had Moore, Burks, JMO, McLaurin. What is it that you thought about when you selected Jerry Jeudy there?
So unlike Nate with the Russell Wilson take, I actually think, I was the one guy, and I was planting my flag last year that I didn't think Russell Wilson and that Denver offense was going to be as good as everybody thought it was going to be. There's multiple takes that I put out there that there's no way that this offense is going to be as good as everybody wants it to be. It's going to take a full year. I think this year is going to be that year where Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy click. Jeudy can actually be Michael Thomas, but better, and be healthy.
You're making me put my finger near that button, and then all of a sudden, it happens to slip in.
You got to be unlimited. You got to have a thought process of being unlimited. So when people ask you, what you're thinking about,
so Gator is he going to be
play no shit? You feel me? Gator never been about that. Never been about playing no shit. Gator don't play no shit. You feel me? Gator never been about that.
So Nate, it's been a minute since we've had you on StreamYard when they made this change, but now on StreamYard you can upload sound drops.
I'm familiar. Yeah, it's not my first rodeo, Jorge. Good Lord.
Well, no, I didn't know. I didn't know whether it was an effect, because I think the last time we had it on was the draft, and so I didn't know if this. Anyhow, I'm going with this. Is they had him at the draft? Okay. I'm very curious as to who is going to upload what sound drop now to this thing for our production quality.
That's why I'm not doing it yet, because I don't want, number one, I don't want you guys seeing it. I'll surprise people with that. But I do want to go into one of the questions.
Yep. I wanted to bring this up. I did want to bring this up real quick. Before we get out of here, we're going an hour and a half. I want to get this question in here. So I'm going to send it to Jorge first. Nate, as soon as he's done, I want you to jump into it. Who is still available but shouldn't be, in your opinion, in these first 10 rounds? Basically, who's available that is a starter? And, of course, now that we're out of the draft, I don't think we can actually see who is still available. So we kind of got to.
That's what I was going to ask you guys, how you do it. All I can see is the stupid benefits crap.
Yeah,
I have mine still queued up here. Who's still available right now? Honestly, we're talking Dynasty. We're talking about short and long term assets here. I think it'd be still too early for Tajay Spears, James Conner. This Cardinals team is looking not awesome. If I really wanted to get a player that I think could step into a starting role and dominate, I think it would be Chase Brown, running back for the Bengals. Joe Mixon could be on his way out, and he would immediately step into a starting role here. But he would be probably the first person I would select here. Then I would go probably Zach Evans in Los Angeles, just because they tried so hard to get rid of Cam Akers last year. Like they were desperate to get rid of Cam Akers. Something tells me that there's something that could potentially be going on there. But a player that I think a lot of people are kind of discounting, and the coaching staff is not discounting, is Antonio Gibson, where he's falling in this draft. I think he can have a bounce back year here in Washington. We saw what Bieniemy was able to do with Jerick McKinnon in the passing game, as well as Pacheco. Give me a thumper and a pass catching running back. Oh, well, here you go. Here's Brian Robinson and here's Antonio Gibson. And so where he's falling, as far as veteran plays, I think he would probably be somebody that I would go after, followed up by Chase Brown.
Nate?
Not having them pulled up and not being able to see the list of people, or maybe Jorge has it and I'm all.
Yeah, I'll tell you if they're available.
No, I mean, let's start at the quarterback. The quarterback you mentioned earlier, Will Levis, should he be taken by now? I think anybody that has, well, I was going to say draft capital, but clearly we saw that fell just a little bit. But by comparison, Will Levis could probably be that that name from the quarterback position that should be. I think Hendon Hooker starting to get close to that area there where people like the upside and could potentially take that shot. You touched on the running backs. What's available and what's kind of always confusing is to know that good mix and that blend of the receiving room. Like use any of the teams out there. Let's use Gators as an example. He's got 3 receivers in Stephon Diggs, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Kirk, none of which I would say are getting up there in age. Obviously, Stephon Diggs being 29 isn't exactly young, but every one of them are right in that potential. I mean, still, Stephon Diggs' upside with Josh Allen is higher than the majority of the 25-year-olds with whatever garbage bag quarterback they have. Sorry to paint with a broad brush, but we get the idea. Christian Kirk's still only 26. Jerry Judy's only 24. I'm not worried about that. It's that, do you take it's not, bust my own balls here. Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, aging veterans. DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, younger, I would say, receivers on teams that I don't know if I trust the potential target share to go their way. So who's that, steady Eddie receiver that's still left, Jorge? Who are some of the top receivers that you see?
So we got a lot of rookies off the top with Josh Downs, Denzel Mims, Rashee Rice. Then we get to Kadarius, Juju, Cortland Sutton, Elijah Moore, Jacoby Myers. Like we're getting towards the unknowns here. Steady wide receiver you're looking for. I think that the one that comes close is Rashad Bateman or Gabe Davis, but
I think Gabe Davis even personally.
Yeah, exactly. So you're really taking a pick on a rookie. To jump back in here for a second, there's a running back listed here who's still available. That it shocks me that we didn't talk about him, and you're not really seeing a lot of conversation regarding him on fantasy Twitter because everyone's still expecting the Bills to make a move here. There's still a starting running back. I believe he's going to be the starter in Buffalo, and that's James Cook. I know they signed Damian Harris in the offseason in free agency, but I would have to think with the draft capital here they got James Cook at last year that he has to have a fair shot at taking on the starting role. There is concerns that, he's too small or this or that, but he's a playmaker. I'm tired of the narrative that they can't handle, running in between the tackles. I don't care if they can handle running in between the tackles. I care if they can get around and score points. So for my fantasy team. So, given the opportunity, no single carry there. Single carry. Wow. I wasn't even trying to.
Wow, that was rude.
I wasn't even trying to insult him, and I ended up doing it anyhow. Freudian slip. But I like James Cook there also. But, let's get into the tight ends here, Nate, that are still available. We have David Njoku. We have Greg Dulcich, who would potentially pair well with Russell Wilson. Obviously,
Chicago, right? I bet he's probably still available.
He is still available. Yep. What are your thoughts on Mike Gesicki going to New England and pairing him up with Hunter Henry? Do you think this is?
I don't know.
This is just a wasteland of a situation here.
Wasn't last year such an opportunistic landing spot for everybody in New England? As far it just felt like, oh man, there's a lack of good receiving talent. We should see an opportunity for. The problem is if you have more than one tight end, do you have one at all? And I know that some teams are predicated on the what is that? I was going to say the Kansas City approach that I wanted this year, and I don't know a way to phrase that because it was optimistic hope that they could have Dalton Kincaid and Travis Kelce, and here I am dogging a team that has 2 tight ends, but I don't see anybody in New England. I don't believe it's Mac Jones for the long haul. And maybe call me foolish. I don't know if it's Bailey Zappi as well, but
so let me go back to wide receivers now, and let's talk about a couple here that are jumping off the page in terms of still available as we're getting into the later rounds of this draft. Would you rather have Brandon Cooks going to Dallas, or would you take a shot on Odell Beckham in Baltimore now that they're bringing back Lamar Jackson?
Cooks for me.
Cooks for me as well.
Okay. What about let's see here. Would you take for a rookie Tank Dell, or would you take Jalen Hyatt?
Tank Dell in Houston, Jalen Hyatt in New York. Give me Jalen Hyatt because I think Danny Dimes can actually drop dimes on a deep ball.
I will go the opposite and take Nathaniel Dell because CJ Stroud made that pick happen. From what I've heard, he actually went out, and now that doesn't mean anything because if what we hope out of Stroud is to be as good as Daniel Jones has been. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's kind of, you want more, but
the reason CJ Stroud wanted Tank Dell was that way he could just move into the dorm with him. That's what that was. He didn't want to buy an apartment or a house or anything. So
good enough for me. Hey,
no.
if that creates, I would say, what do we say? Again, Cooper Kupp had breakfast with Matthew Stafford. These guys are going to have breakfast. Now, I don't want to say breakfast in bed together because that will start up a whole different conversation. People don't want.
Not that we're judging. Not
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Close.
But
happens behind closed doors. You don't need to put out in the open.
Don't care.
That's
But
right.
that'd be close. And that means, do I think that that's I think in the short term, I think we'll see more. We'll see more out of Jalen Hyatt early on, which could lead to we've seen that plenty of times. I mean, the immediate reaction just whatever ruins the pot based off of not letting it simmer a little bit. And I think simmering could be what Tank Dell does. And he has the name Nathan. So, of course, he's going to move up my list just a little bit.
No bias at all. No bias.
None. Zero.
Let me ask you, Nate, one last question here. Chiefs wide receivers that are available.
Okay.
Rashee Rice,
All
Kadarius Toney. Yeah, pretty much. And Sky Moore. If you had to ride with one of them long term, who would you be riding with?
Probably KT. Probably Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't think that the health will stick around. The Chiefs have been known to be very good as far as we've seen that over the years. They get people prepared for games. Injuries don't seem to last as long. They're more. You can't be prepared for injury, but you can do some conditioning drills that help prevent longer lasting injuries. And I think that would benefit Tony. I've said this before. I do think that Justin Ross will be a very valuable best ball receiver that you can stack in the last pick with Mahomes if you end up getting Mahomes and you want to do something. Just because another year removed, coaching staff really likes him. The team dynamic has said that they like his blend of size and speed. And Mahomes has, again, I don't know how much of this I can trust and take with what I hear locally, but they've always said that those two just seem to always in practice or at least in situations hit each other for these huge big plays, and that it wouldn't shock people to see him be the 100 target guy out of the receiving core this year, which is a low number by comparison to other teams, but 100 targets from a Patrick Mahomes led offense is better than 130 targets from many of the other teams.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the Kansas City wide receiving core, I mean, outside of Kelsey, it's if you're grabbing those, you're probably grabbing those more in best ball than you are in either redraft or dynasty.
100% agreed with that.
So, I want to answer the question you had earlier, or that my kicks.
Mm-hmm.
The question he had earlier about who's available. I'm going to disagree with Jorge because I don't think it's too early that Tajay Spears is still out there. I think his ADP for a sleeper is somewhere around 100, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
So he should be in this range. The questions that are in Tennessee right now with Derrick Henry, whether he's going to be there, whether he's going to be traded, no matter what, this is the last year of his deal. If he's already being talked about being traded, they're probably not going to re-sign him.
Right.
So in in a dynasty, Tajay Spears looks like the next man up. I mean, we saw Haskins last year, but yeah. But of course, now it's Derrick Henry, so you're not going to see much of anybody. But I have plenty of shares of Haskins, but the Tajay Spears, I don't worry about the knee at all. Either one of them. He doesn't have ACLs. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Dude is just good. If you were worried about his knee, you go look at the Senior Bowl practice where he just ducks under somebody and just keeps going. I mean, if you got to worry about knees, you're not doing that. So yeah, Tajay Spears is the one that surprises me that's still on the board, and that's probably my own fault because I was looking at my team, and I'm the only one that took multiple tight ends, and I ended up taking 3 of them. But I took them because I looked at my team as a win now team. After the Dallas Goedert pick, I was like, okay, well, this is definitely going to be win now. Then I got Dalvin Cook. So now I'm going all in. I probably should have taken Tajay Spears over Evan Ingram. But
right. No, that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, hindsight's 2020, of course, with everything.
But he was in my queue, so if you didn't take him on your next pick and Tamor and 87 Carey didn't take him, he was going in the 11th round.
Right.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of the things that I did look at when I had that 10th round pick with that last one being Mike Evans. Again, I'm filling in my roster spot, and I don't want my third flex player. I don't really want my second flex being, Roshan, even though I think there's a chance that he does supplant that and get to see the majority of the carries this year. A Tajay Spears handcuff-esque, so multiple handcuff format to Derrick Henry, and that he's handcuffing him in case of injury, which we don't want for a team that if you draft Derrick Henry, the last thing you want is for you take a handcuff of Tajay Spears because Henry's hurt. The replacement value is then just 1-to-1, and it's actually a drop-off. What you hope is that Derrick Henry moves on and he ends up starting for one other team for the one extra contract that he signs, and then Tajay Spears is the starter there. And then you get 2 starters out of 1. I mean, that's the ideal scenario. That's what you were hoping. I think that's what many people were hoping last year when they took both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They thought, all right, once Kareem Hunt gets traded to a different team, man, I got 2 starters, or there's plenty of other teams that same dynamic. What about Jerick McKinnon not being drafted? Not that I'm shocked by that at all, but he re-signing with Kansas City, we saw at the end of the season. Now, I know a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was a touchdown outlier, but is Jerick McKinnon a name that you're even addressing non-best ball situations, Jorge?
So here's the thing. Like, we didn't see any fundamental shifts with Kansas City. They brought back McKinnon. It's still Pacheco and McKinnon in that backfield. They added a rookie wide receiver, and I think we just covered that, that wide receiver, that receiving group outside of Kelsey is kind of like hit or miss, right? So I do like the McKinnon pick there as a flex option, deeper in drafts, probably more so for redraft than for Dynasty, but the usage is kind of undeniable as far as what happened last year. You just saw them. I guess the concern with McKinnon has always been like the injury bug since he got to San Francisco, and then he could never stay healthy, and they were expecting him to be the workhorse back. Well, he doesn't need to be the workhorse back. Now he can just utilize him as the passing game. And I think the important thing here is Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes trust him. Now, the one concern I say for McKinnon, though, is we have Nagy back as the offensive coordinator in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And so when Matt Nagy was there, they didn't utilize multiple running backs. It was Kareem Hunt, that year he was there. And then it was, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name already. It's been so long.
Jamal Charles.
No. The guy who should have won MVP in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs at running back.
Yeah, Damian Williams.
Yeah, he committed to just one guy. It makes you wonder whether or not they're going to just utilize Pacheco, kind of open up his skill set a little bit more. Although you didn't see a lot of reception upside with Pacheco last year, so I don't know whether that's just because I don't know. I have no idea why that is the case, but that would be my only concern. Nagy sticking to one running back with Jerick McKinnon, but if after week 1 or week 2 we see McKinnon still involved, then all wheels up as far as being a flex option because Patrick Mahomes is who you're tying him to. There's a history, there's a rapport there, so I could definitely see that in a redraft.
Yeah, I mean, we saw McKinnon last year be fantasy viable, and not even so much through the rushing game, but it was more for the passing game, and it was whatever. Maybe it was only 3 or 4, actual receptions a game, but they were for like 45, 50 yards each. At least one touchdown. So, I mean, McKinnon being in the first 10 rounds, no, but if he's probably coming up in that 12, 13 range, I would think, especially for a team like the build of Team 7 where they only have J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, right? Or a team like, that is at 0 RB. So they're going to throw darts at every single RB from the 12th round to the 14th round, 15th round. Right, every single RB that they can get their hands on, and McKinnon's probably going to be one of those, especially in a PPR league.
So here's a question: the idea and the definition of 0 RB obviously raises plenty of eyebrows. Many people want to go in and have that conversation about what that truly means. By this draft definition, the team that epitomized 0 RB the most is you, Gator, by taking Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones. To me, in a startup superflex, the 0 RB is a viable solution and a situation. Given your team construct, how did you screw that up so bad?
Well, I mean, I didn't. I got.
I'm kidding.
I mean, give me a break. Can you get a? What the hell are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about? Come on.
No, I think you did a great job. But that's my question: is not to, how can I insult you more? But it's an approach of the 0 RB strategy in a superflex startup with going Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones at the 7-4-9-4, or pivoting to some of the teams, the other 3 teams that took it to at nearly the same, quote unquote extremes would be both Team 7, which is the aforementioned J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers, and then Jorge's, Damian Pierce, Pacheco, Miller, and then Tank Bigsby. Which approach, so Jorge, let me ask you this. Do you feel that less is more in Gator J's approach by taking 2 potential maybe workhorse backs? I don't want to say that because obviously we've seen that Alexander Madison and AJ Dillon both can be those guys, but they've both been the guys when they've needed to step up in replacement, not in addition. Whereas now you have Damian Pierce, Isaiah Pacheco. You have 4 guys who are all battling for extra carries. Is there a right answer? I don't, it's a tough question to answer.
So, I'm looking at who's coming after Dalvin Cook. So you got Pacheco, Miller, Cam Akers. There's outside of Miller and Pacheco, let's see, Cam Akers, who else comes after that? A-Chain, Charbonnet. I mean, part of me wonders whether the thought process with Dalvin Cook is he's going somewhere else. He's going to land on his feet somewhere else, and that's just a situation versus him staying in Minnesota, which all the reports you keep reading every single day makes it seem like that's highly unlikely. I am curious why the lack of going more rookie didn't enter the equation. You went with Christian Kirk in between your running backs here. Did the thought of A-Chain or Charbonnet or Roshan, what about them did not appeal to you at that point in the draft?
Well, because I am one of those ones that is a 0 RB. I've seen it work so many times, especially in startups where you can get those values, You can get those second tier running backs, in that 12, 13, 14 range. The Christian Kirk was a 1 last year. And yes, as much as I think Calvin Ridley is going to be the one this year, we still don't know. He hasn't been on the field with Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk has for a whole year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if Calvin Ridley is the one, Christian Kirk's still going to get 105, 110 targets, right. 83, 85 catches, somewhere in that range. 6 touchdowns. Give me that all day long as my wide receiver 3. So, and again, we talk about A-Chain. You asked me, did A-Chain cross my mind? Did Charbonnet cross my mind? No, they didn't, because, again, not looking at running backs, but also not looking at – I don't want a rookie as something that I'm going to definitely be putting in my starting lineup when we don't know what they're going to be.
Gotcha.
Yes, we think they can be good, but we don't know what they're going to do on the NFL field. We've seen it so many times. So give me even a second-year player over – a Christian, give me an Olave over any of the rookies coming in, even at JSN, who me, I'm super high on JSN. Give me an Olave or something like that that's already had it in, already been in the NFL, proved it on the NFL field.
There's one team I kind of want to talk about real quick for the tight end. It was the 10th team. Was it Big Bad Booty Daddy or whatever it is? What is his name?
Team 11.
Yeah, well, yeah, I probably should just call him by the number. Yeah, Team 11. He went with Firemouth as this tight end when people like Hawkinson.
Third tight end off the board, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What are your thoughts on Firemouth there in Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett and the receiving options they have there? Do you think that was a bit of a reach at the tight end position, or do you think the tight end premium nature is kind of like his only saving grace at this point?
Well, I think, okay, when I first saw the pick, I was like, absolutely a reach, because you still had Mark Andrews on the board. You still had Hawkinson on the board. You still had Goddard on the board.
Right.
But I love where he came back and got Kincaid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah, you made the reach. Basically, right now, it's probably going to be wide receiver 2 in the Pittsburgh offense behind Kenny Pickett. I mean, behind Pickens.
Yeah.
Right? So he's going to be wide receiver 2 in that offense, because we still don't know what Deontay Johnson is going to be. He is wishy-washy, got 800 yards, but no TDs. When you look at fantasy, we want them TDs. Firemouth is going to get some TDs. So coming back and getting Kincaid, who is now not a tight end, he's a slot, but he's labeled as a tight end. So, yeah, I love what he did there. I love the mindset, the thought process. I still would have taken Hawkinson, Goddard, Mark Andrews over Firemouth.
So the only thing about that I don't say bothers me is that the same talk about Deontay and the lack of touchdowns can hold true to Pat Freiermuth. Because remember, in 2021, he went from 7 touchdowns all the way down to 2 touchdowns in 2022. And I will say, this is not a knock on him, because I know he missed 3 games, 4 with a bye. And if you take his targets with that matchup, which is what you want to see that connection. I mean, I see 5 games with 8+ targets in each one of those games, which from a tight end perspective, 100% on board with that. But you're right. I do think that there's a little, knowing where he went by comparison, simply because Mark Andrews and Hawkinson were on the board. I don't care in a startup or even just a single redraft league. I'm still taking Andrews and Hawkinson over Freiermuth, even in Dynasty, because in a blind, let's just say I'm giving the situation, you don't know the context, and I go, would you rather have in a tight end premium the combination of Freiermuth and Kincaid or Mark Andrews and Kincaid or TJ Hawkinson and Kincaid? I think I know the answer. 2 of the 3 answers would be Andrews, Hawkinson, along with Kincaid over Freiermuth. And you think, wow, what if in that same situation he went Saquon at the pick instead of Freiermuth, and now he has Bijan, Saquon, Andrews, because he could have taken Andrews instead over Ramondre, and maybe that's just my bias that I like Saquon and Mark Andrews more than Freiermuth and Ramondre Stevenson, but who am I to speak on his behalf? He has his reasonings, and if that's what it is, and they both turn out to be better than the two aforementioned that I just said, I mean, I'll give anybody the benefit of the doubt. You want to take player A over player B until that career is over? Who the hell am I to tell you it was a bad pick or not?
Well, God damn it, Nate, that's what you're here for.
Well, yeah, I told you your pick sucked.
Oh, well, then
I know your long-term history. I mean, yeah, just because you run 45 races a week doesn't mean finishing 44th out of 45 of them. Ultimately, yeah. Well, I don't mean running.
I was gonna say they built cars for a reason.
Okay, well, just because you crash in 13 of the 12 races you entered, and yes, I know that math doesn't seem to make sense.
Didn't work
it
out.
Does. Oh, it does. When you ever seen Gator Drive, you would know.
Midwest math.
That's and Southeast driving. So those two, I've driven through Atlanta, and I can tell you, holy hell! Actually, that's not entirely true because the drivers around here are pretty shitty. I'm not gonna ever paint with a broad brush with that.
285 is it's a loop for a reason. So it's only left turns.
Oh yeah, driving through Cancun this past couple days back was interesting. It was there's a lot of spaces that should be occupied that were occupied on the road.
Well, I lived in Italy for a little over 3 years, and
oh shit, really?
The rule of driving over there was front bumper has right away. There was many a times where it's a 2-lane highway, one going each way, and at rush hour, it turned into a 6-lane highway. Thank you that there was a wide enough sidewalk for people to walk on. Yeah. That turned into 6 lanes right there. But I digress. Guys, we made it 2 hours tonight. We had a great draft. Thank you, everyone that did join us in the draft. And if you're listening, we will post this draft on Twitter. And please let us know where your thoughts are as far as not necessarily who had the best, who had the worst draft, but where you thought the value was, where you thought people reached. So when we post this on Twitter, hopefully I will get Jorge to post this on the Twitter tonight so that everybody can look at that, see where the people got value, see what people liked and whatnot. But Nate, we're gonna get out of here. Tell the people what you got going on real quick, and then we'll get Jorge to do the exact same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's now that back to reality is set in and vacation's over. It's time to jump back into the ever, I would say, approaching IDP landscape over at Fantasy and Frames. It's time for me to get in to find out how and what I'm going to rank my players, get it going. I would love to have a preseason rankings that finishes very accurate this year. That's kind of one of my goals I'm going to set for myself, not just an in-season rankings, because in-season is great. If you have a wide open roster availability every single week, doesn't do shit for people if I say this person's better than that person if all those guys are rostered. So my goal this year is to provide you with the best pre-draft ranking sheet known on the old interwebs, and I believe that collectively at Fantasy and Frames we will have the best IDP preseason rankings out available. Check them over at fantasyandframes.com.
Hell yes.
Goddamn right.
Oh, baby. What's going on, Jorge? What do you got going on?
So what do we have going on? So I just rejoined Dynasty 365 on Wednesdays, so we're really looking forward to that. We will be doing this actually, however, this week on Tuesday. But going forward, we'll have our show normally on Wednesdays at 8:00. I'm with Nate over on Shoot the Gap, our IDP show, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Putting out some IDP YouTube profiles on players, Dynasty targets on players pretty soon. and just jumping in anywhere and everywhere we need to get this content out here at Fantasy and Frames. Really proud of not only the crew that's been around here for a while, like Nate and Tyler and Keith and whatnot, and Jonathan and Bill, the names go on, but really proud of all the new people that we've brought on this year, all 18 of them, it feels like, whether it's Stacy and Stephanie doing our best ball shows each and every week, which have been fantastic, to the guys, Chris, Drew, and Rhett over on Fourth and Frames. Just really a lot of great information that they're providing, and you can tell that they're doing really well and producing really great content because of the people that we have coming on. They wouldn't come on if they didn't have faith in the people that they were going to go talk to. So again, head over to our Twitter page at Fantasy and Frames, and pinned at the top, you're going to see all these upcoming guests that every show is going to have to talk about fantasy football. And that's what I really love about what we do here is we really cover every single facet of fantasy football. So whatever, you like to play, we got it covered. Head over to fantasyandframes.com. Again, Nate alluded to it. Check out our rankings. We got our Dynasty rankings up. We got our IDP Dynasty rankings. We're going to have Redraft coming up soon. And just a whole lot of content we're pumping out there. So thank you very much, everybody who's been supporting us this year and helping us grow. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know the last 2 weeks, the Fourth and Frames crew did their quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end top 12 rankings. Go check those out. Those are on the YouTube channel. They've also posted them on their Twitter channel or on their Twitter accounts as well. This week they have Eric Moody coming on from ESPN. That'll be 9:00 on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So, I mean, we've got the number 5 in ECR in IDP from last year, who is now guaranteeing that we are going
to fuck that. I don't care. Yeah, do it. Guarantee it. Guarantee what?
Guarantee that we're going to be the most accurate in IDP rankings preseason. So let's get to work, Nate. Guys, I really appreciate everybody hanging out, joining us tonight for this startup mock. We would definitely be doing some more of these startups, whether it be one quarterback, whether it be Superflex. Of course, like I said earlier, we'll be doing some of the Scott Fishbowl mocks as well for you. Hopefully we'll have a couple guests on while we're doing those. We will continue doing our rookie mocks as well for the foreseeable future. Words, they're just not good tonight.
That's okay.
But for Jorge, everybody, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit the bell. Go check out all the shows. Thank you again. Have a great night. We are out of here.